We are live. First time ever doing this on my phone, and the reason for that, honestly, is because we're just doing this
It's a glare.
on the fly. This is the most on the fly. I'm not even using the traditional mic. People are probably like, "Dude, you didn't even post about this. You didn't do anything." Rob is about to go on a trip for work to Cincinnati, and we actually filmed a full 30 to almost 40-minute video talking about X-Men First Class as we continue on my series of X-Men reviews here on the channel. And yeah, the audio was all kinds of jacked up. We tried to do something different and it did not work out. We were trying to do something with multiple cameras, multiple audio avenues, and
Great idea, and it would have been great if it worked. It just didn't.
It didn't work. So this is going to be a little bit more off the cuff, chilling. The AC just turned on if it's a little bit noisy in the background. You know, just wanted to add something, I guess, different to the X-Men series of reviews. All of them have been my more traditional series of, collab reviews. They're a little more clean and pristine, but we're just going to kind of sit here real quick for like the next 10-15 minutes, talk about X-Men First Class, and just call it what it is. So hope you guys enjoy the video and have a good time. You know, there's nobody watching, so reality is everybody's going to be watching after the fact.
Yeah.
But the big Rob theory, right now there's nothing in the description box because we literally decided to do this right now on the fly. We were going to film a normal video, but I don't feel like going through the editing process again since I already tried for this, review, and it just didn't work out. So we're just going to have an off-the-cuff thing, have a good time. If you're watching this after the fact, the description box already probably has Rob's link down below. But if you're watching this live, which you're not, feel free to go to the Big Rob Theory here on YouTube. He's the only guy named the Big Rob Theory, and the only guy that's called the Big Rob Theory that looks like this. So go over to his channel where he talks about all kinds of movies and comic book stuff and all that great jazz. And here we are, X-Men First Class 2011. The second prequel film in the series, because you have X-Men Origins Wolverine before this, but the first of the new movies of the prequels. And directed by Matthew Vaughn, who's done Stardust, Kick-Ass, as well as the Kingsman films. And I think we can definitely see his feel and vibe in this film.
Kingsman-esque.
Yeah, definitely very Kingsman-esque at times, very comic booky. And yeah, this is a movie that overall I think I enjoyed. I think upon rewatch, we both realized that we had a lot of criticisms, a lot more criticism than I remember. Yeah, there are some dated elements, some poor choices here. And like they kind of started to do, like here's the thing, we talked about this. Every single one of the movies in the original 3 films had little inconsistencies in terms of characters. Like you see Hank McCoy in the second movie on a TV for 3 seconds, and then the next movie, he's like an established character that they've already known, and he's been Beast for a while, and he's fighting for mutant rights. So it's a little inconsistent. You know, we see Kitty Pryde in the second X-Men movie, and then she shows up as Elliot Page in the third film. Again, just like a little inconsistent.
Very inconsistent stuff.
Right.
That time's very inconsistent. Other times, small inconsistencies to where you're like, how bad?
Right. And so then they do X-Men Origins Wolverine, and they just start throwing the timeline out the window and start throwing all kinds of...
The timeline of everything.
The consistency is right out the window. And so we have First Class. And I think had First Class been its own thing, 150%, it would have just been something that... Like, it would have just been fine, you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't have been anything to really be too concerned about. But since it has Hugh Jackman in here with a cameo, since it is so tied into the other films, and the next film, Days of Future Past, would end up really solidifying that, man, there are just so many things that they just throw into this movie that are just inconsistent.
And just some just don't make sense. Like, some of them...
Right.
I get where they're coming from, Because, here's the great reality. As a movie, as he just said, if it was on its own... just first thing, it'd be great,
Right.
It's still a good movie overall. It's just, man, as he said, we rewatched it, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't remember this stuff sounding like this when I watched it the first time.
Right.
And it's just so bad because we're gonna get into it because we talked about it in the previous video,
right.
And we were pretty heated about it, especially this guy. The whole Mystique, Nightcrawler, and Azazel fiasco or debacle.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Imagine if we got a Spider-Man movie one day that had like Black Widow in it or some other female character, and the whole time Spider-Man is just throwing the Mac down on that other female character, and Mary Jane is in the movie, but he just doesn't talk to her. So the fact that Mystique is in this film, and then you have Azazel, the father and mother of Nightcrawler, which they in X-Men 2 already ignored the fact that they have any sort of relation. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I'm all for different adaptations. It doesn't have to be just like the comics. But it's not like you're gonna do a new Spider-Man movie and MJ is like not the romantic interest. Like you expect MJ to be a romantic interest because you're making these movies based on the inspiration of the comic books. So the same way, it's like Nightcrawler is Mystique's fucking son, and you have Mystique in this movie played by Jennifer Lawrence, and you have Azazel, the father, and Nightcrawler shows up in a couple movies. Azazel literally looks just like Nightcrawler. He's just red. And they do nothing with them even really talking or having any sort of romantic elements.
I don't think Mystique and Azazel even interacted once in this movie.
Yeah, they stand next to each other at the end.
Yeah, but they literally didn't say a word to each other.
Right.
Nothing.
I don't really know what they were thinking with that, to be completely and utterly honest. It's a frustrating part. But what we're going to do, because we've already talked about this already, and we just kind of want to talk about the individuals in this film, what I will say on this movie overall is I find it to be, it's got some great action. There's some great visuals. Some CGI that's a little dated, but overall, visually cool. Some really cool action. I think the biggest faults for this movie for me are there's a lot of characters that don't get a lot of time to shine or really serve zero purpose other than looking cool or doing a cool thing. And outside of some cool action, the biggest and strongest part of this whole movie is seeing the X-Men come together, and specifically James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as Charles Xavier and as Magneto, Eric Lensher. And I said it as we were watching the film, and there's this great moment where they're working together to lift a submarine out of the water at the end. I just looked over at Rob and my fiance and I said, Xavier and Magneto have to be two of the greatest characters created in anything ever. And so I think, even with the negatives I have about this film, there are some really strong positives. And I think the negatives come down to specific characters and actors that we'll get into in a moment. But just your overall thoughts on the film, just overall.
Overall, like I said earlier, it was good. It was good. Entertaining, very entertaining. It's just coming from two people who actually love comic books and love continuity with things. And obviously there's different adaptations. Hello, Flash, like come on, all the CW shows. Very different adaptations to the characters,
right?
But there's good elements about them, and there's good elements about this movie as well. It's just, man, we were watching it, and he was just doing this out the window because literally a lot of things were just thrown out the window. Like a lot of things were thrown out the window.
In terms of continuity of things that we had just seen in the films, like a good example is that
some things just don't make sense.
Right, we had what's it called? Emma Frost is in this film. We just saw Emma Frost in a whole different timeline in a different age because this movie takes place in the 60s. Yeah, the 60s. And which is another thing because all these actors hardly age at all and each movie takes place in a different decade.
And Wolverine was in...
Yeah. I don't even know when X-Men Origins Wolverine takes place. I'm going to guess based on that movie, maybe in the 80s. Or something like that. I don't know. This is where the timeline starts to go out the window. And Emma Frost is in that movie, but then she's in this movie, and she's completely and utterly different. And I mean, obviously, the timeline wouldn't make any sense for her to even have been in X-Men Origins Wolverine based on the one we see here. And then at the end of this movie...
That's a good point, sorry.
By the way, this is just full of spoilers, but
That's a really good point.
It doesn't make any sense. And then they go in, and the movie ends with Magneto saving her, and she doesn't even show up again. Her, Azazel, and Riptide, they don't show up in another movie after this. So why did he go and get them at the end?
And why was Emma Frost imprisoned for the last half of the movie, but could still use her powers?
Right. She should have been able to get out of there. She could have telepathically had somebody controlled, and you could say that it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. It's all over the place with certain things. But where this movie really shines is Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy as Xavier and Magneto. Their journey, the things that they go through, all the way up to Magneto deflecting the bullet that ends up, paralyzing Charles. All of that is just brilliant. Every single moment with James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender in this film is amazing. There's that epic scene where Michael Fassbender is trying to find out information about where Shaw is, the villain of this film played by Kevin Bacon. And he's using his powers to pull over this knife and stab this guy in the hand and take this other guy out.
Where were they? In South America, right?
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere I don't even know.
Mexico?
Something like that. Something like that. And it was dope. It was cool. It felt really cool. The opening of this film, kind of going back to the original opening of the first film.
Yeah.
Super cool. I think that whole thing with the Holocaust, with Magneto, I think has been handled really well in these films. And so I think it goes without saying, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender are favorite parts of this movie.
I mean, easily. I was trying to think of other things and other characters, but none of them measure up to the caliber caliber of Xavier and Eric. You know, like the way how these characters were built for this movie, and the actors were obviously phenomenal too. And there's great actors and actresses in this movie as well, alongside them. It's just, I don't know. When it came to the other characters, it kind of, I don't know if you felt this way. It just kind of felt a little disjointed and kind of just flopped in there. Like the whole scene where everybody's like partying, kind of. Right. I feel like that was kind of just thrown in there for what reason? Like, I get it that they're somewhat kids, but they're not really kids.
Well, it just leads to that scene that I was talking. We talked about this in the other video that we filmed that didn't work out. You know, it just felt like it was so cheesy. It's these, you know, these kids kind of messing around, even though they're kind of adults, like most of them. Like, literally, Beast is a part of that, and they're trying to act like they're all these adolescent kids. Beast is a scientist working for the government. They don't even know they don't even know he's a mutant before then. So he must be mature to some extent. So they're all goofing around, and he's hanging upside down, and it's also they can give each other their names. And then, you know, when Magneto and Xavier come all disappointed to find out, like, you guys are better than this, you know. Right before that, Mystique is like, yeah, we thought you could be called Magneto and you can be Professor X. It's like, dude, like, it's not, that's how they get their names. Because at the very end, when he goes, I prefer Magneto, it's like, it's a cool scene, and he looks dope in the outfit, but it's like the way that they get the names. Like, I can't imagine him being like, you know, that name that Mystique gave me when they were fooling around that one night, Magneto? It's great. I was thinking Magnet Man, but Magneto works, you know. But I don't know. It just didn't. It doesn't work. Let's get straight to Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, because we're going to take too much time here, and I know we have to get Rob to a flight. I'm not a fan of Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. I like Jennifer Lawrence as an actress. I think she's great. She's a beautiful actress. She's got really great movies. But she doesn't fit the makeup well, specifically in this movie. It's better in the next film, Days of Future Past. But her version of the character just doesn't align with the other ones. The other one played by Rebecca Romijn, who does have a cameo in here. But her time spent with Xavier in this film, the kind of relationship they have, it doesn't even connect to the versions that we see later on in the original 3 films. And I know that that Days of Future Past kind of rewrites those films, but at the end of the day, it's like, before Days of Future Past, this was supposed to be the story, and it doesn't make sense. Like, this obviously shows how Mystique would come to be with Xavier more, but, you know, the characters feel so widely different between the 2 films, between the 2 series, you know, and I just don't feel like Jennifer Lawrence really brought the very cool, kind of creepy vibe that Mystique is, you know what I mean? Like, any iteration you see in the comics, the video games, the cartoons, like, in Rebecca Romijn's version, is great, and in this movie,
no, I get it, man. I was just sitting here thinking, like, man, Jennifer Lawrence is a phenomenal actress.
Right.
Let's get that out there, because we are in no way saying that Jennifer Lawrence is not a great actress, because she is. She's actually one of my favorite actresses. It's just that, I don't know. It's just a miscast. You know, it was easily just a miscasting, in my personal opinion. Just like other movies, you know, there's been miscastings. She just did not bring it to the table as Mystique, and then on top of that, it didn't even seem like she really wanted to. And then finding out, she didn't really want to, right?
Like she would just. I know she wasn't like wasn't thrilled in the later films with how it all panned out. But I mean, you're not wrong. And you know, she wasn't thrilled about how much makeup they made her go through in the first film for her to only have been in full makeup for like essentially 1 or 2 scenes. You know, so that's a real big downside to that whole thing, is that there's not like she's like, you know, in the other films, Rebecca Romijn is like in full Mystique nudity attire for a lot of the movie, and she has a lot to do. But in this movie, not as much, and so there's that element. Let's move on to Kevin Bacon, the villain. He plays Sebastian Shaw. I thought he was a good villain in the film. He's Kevin Bacon, great actor. He's got this cool power in the film. A couple times where the CG around his powers isn't 100%, and it looks a little cartoony, but overall, I thought he was a good villain.
Yeah, no, he's probably one of the better parts of this movie as well, right, along with obviously Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy. Like, all 3 of them did do a good job in the movie. There's just another set of small inconsistencies regarding him too, you know, in my opinion. Like, I don't know, just. No, it's not him. It's Riptide. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to get into Riptide.
Riptide. Not him. Never mind. There's not real inconsistencies. The only thing is the CGI thing. There's like one scene at the end where like he's like in a nuclear reactor, and then his face is coming back, and it's like, wait a minute.
It looks very cartoony.
Like, why? Not only does he look like a cartoon, he looks like one of those like angry villain cartoons that are like made to look very cheesy because they're supposed to be cheesy.
Right.
That's what it looked like.
Right.
What is Why does he look like an old cartoony man? What's
Right.
going on here?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
overall though, I thought he was
that's
pretty strong in the movie.
no, he was really strong in the movie. So that's literally the only thing is just that CGI thing.
I'm gonna just bunch these together because it just is what it is. Alex Gonzalez, Jason Fleming, and Zoe Kravitz as Riptide, Azazel, and Angel. I already said what I had to say about Azazel earlier. He's got some cool action sequences. I love the scene where he's like teleporting everybody to the sky when he's coming into that like X-Men base and he's killing everybody. I've always loved Nightcrawler's power of the teleportation. So yeah, he looks cool. He doesn't have any moment in here that's anywhere near as cool as the Nightcrawler scenes from X2, but you know he's pretty cool. Riptide, dude. I don't even think the guy says. I think he hardly says any lines in this film. He's just literally just consistently throwing tornadoes at people, and he really serves no purpose in this film other than just being a henchman guy. And then Zoe Kravitz, thank God she got a chance to do another comic book movie to play Catwoman because she's fantastic as that character.
Why was Riptide in this movie?
Honestly, why is Angel in this movie? The fight between Angel and Banshee as well later on is
trash.
weak. You know, like I don't know. I don't think Zoe Kravitz was great in this film, and it comes down to the writing. I think a lot of the writing of these secondary characters, they had a great idea for James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, but after them, they didn't really know what to do with these characters, so they were just kind of like, they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that. They're gonna go pew pew pew. And
Yeah, that's
be
what
tornado
man.
man.
Like it just like that. It just seemed like a lackadaisical approach to everybody else,
Right.
which I don't understand why. So these
Right.
characters are great. They're awesome in the comics, and we didn't even say anything about the Summers brothers, you know, because that's a whole other animal in itself. It just makes no damn sense. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, honestly, there's not much to say on those guys other than they just
man.
really underutilize them and they don't really serve much purpose in the story other than just being the henchmen. Then we have Rose Byrne in this film who plays Moira, and you know she's fine. You know, I enjoy her presence in the film, and she has more to do in the later movies. But you know, I don't think she's like a. At the end of the day, her mind gets wiped at the end of the movie, so she doesn't
exactly.
like you know like she's not really like that important to this movie. Like she's there, but you know.
Is she though?
Right. Nicholas Hoult as Beast. I thought he's great as the character of Hank McCoy. I like the look on Beast. Maybe a little too furry at certain points, but I like the look. It's inconsistent with what we would see in the later films and what we would see in the original 3 films with Beast. But I do like this kind of lion, cat, dog kind of look that he has in this film, just for the fact that it exists. I think had they continued with that and kind of, worked on the mouth of the animatronic, of the makeup and stuff, it could have been pretty cool. But I like it for what it is. I know some people crap on how Beast looks in this movie, but I like it.
No, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But it is a different look. It's an interesting look.
Right.
I like it. You know, it kind of fits the theme of this movie.
Right.
You know, just like how the other Beast in the older movies like fits that the theme of that movie. You know, or the ambiance of that movie. The look of this Beast, I feel like fits this First Class movie. So that's I think why I like it because it just everything like fits. Well.
Right. Which I do like that takes place in the 60s. I think overall when it comes to the production value of the film, I don't think we have any issue with production value when it comes to. I mean, there's some moments of CGI, but overall, like costume design, the look, the feel, the fact that they take you back to the 60s, the attire, the cars, everything feels like you're in the 60s. So there's definitely that. Then we have January Jones as Emma Frost, and she's fine in the role, but again, she doesn't have an abundance to do. And at a certain point, they just kind of write her off, put her in prison for the last half of the movie. Then she's saved by Magneto at the very end, and then she never shows up ever again.
Like, I just want to say something real quick about this. What was Emma Frost's like role in this movie aside from the first 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, being like how Charles is, but just bad.
Right.
Which is actually really dope. You know, honestly, they slept on that too because they could have had her throughout the whole movie, kind of doing what Charles is doing. Obviously not
For
the
the
same
opposite
thing,
side, right?
but just being like, all right, well, let's see where these mutants are. Let's recruit them, or if not, let's kill them. You know, because they're not going to stand in our way. And then, oh wait, somebody else is tapping up. It's that other telepath. I'll get rid of them.
Yeah, and they do that for a little bit, but then they kind of just
like 5 minutes, and that was awesome. It was
Right.
awesome, Charles is just like, look, I'm not gonna be helpful. Sorry,
Right.
and then you're just like, what do you mean you're not gonna be helpful?
Right.
Wow, how strong is this girl? So and then she just gets taken out kind of easily too. I don't know. It just that was very inconsistent and
there's just a lot of characters. There's a lot of characters in this movie, and as much as I love so much about it, especially around Xavier and Magneto, rewatching it, I realized there's a lot of just like not only inconsistencies with the other films because I at the time could just watch this as almost like a reboot, but it's not because you see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. But at the time you could almost watch it as a reboot, but it's like, dude, We also have Caleb Landy Jones in here as Banshee. Again, another X-Men character that isn't given an abundance to do, kind of like Eddie Gathegi as Darwin. Darwin is given nothing to do in this movie, and Darwin as a character is his whole thing, and he says it in the movie, is that he can adapt to anything. That's his whole thing. He literally shows people by shoving his face into a fish tank, and he grows gills. That's
adapt to this.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then they give him so Havoc throws his power at Shaw, Kevin Bacon's character. He absorbs it and then puts it in Darwin's mouth. And Darwin starts turning all like molten lava-esque and stuff like that.
Which that should have been the one that he adapted to. That would have been fine.
Right.
Like literally, he should have been
fine. He should not have died. His whole power is to adapt to what's around him so that the amount of energy that he consumed, technically his mutation should have adapted to that level. Like if Havoc can control it, if Shaw can control Havoc's power and absorb it, then this guy whose power is to adapt to whatever he consumes, whatever he's around, should have been able to consume the power.
I feel like they did that to kind of put it in the movie as like a lighting the fire underneath, the younger X-Men.
Right, setting the stakes kind
of. But I think that they did it the wrong way, because why would you do it with a guy who can adapt to anything? It just doesn't make sense.
They should have killed off like Banshee or something.
Yeah, that would have been sad. That would have been really sad to see Banshee go, because he's kind of funny, He's a little.
He's a nice guy. It would almost felt like, now it's getting serious. But it's like they didn't know what to do with Darwin, because what could he have done in the final battle of this film? What was his adaptation powers really gonna do?
I don't know. Maybe he could have, like on the beach, he could have just grabbed sand and like threw like sand sickles at them. I don't
even know that that's what he can do. There are a lot of characters, and both on the villain side and on the X-Men side, I think that they just underutilize a lot of them. And I can sing the praises of James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender all day, but the whole movie is not only about them.
Exactly.
And I think that that's why I have the criticisms that I do. We'll wrap this up by talking about Lucas Till, who plays Havoc, and we talked about it in the other video we filmed that didn't work out, that it's just a shame that we didn't really properly get in these prequel films, if you're going to have Havoc and you're going to have the Summers brothers, Scott, show up later on with Cyclops, I think if Havoc dies in, was it Apocalypse? Or he dies in Apocalypse in the middle of the whole, because he's blowing up Cerebro, and Quicksilver comes in and saves everybody. It's like they really never had the Summers brothers do stuff together. So to have Havoc in this movie and not do much with him was,
and to kill him off like that, it just seemed like a cop out,
right?
And a very unnecessary and unwarranted cop out. Like I don't understand why you would kill off Havoc like that, especially because we, as comic book fans, we really want to see the Summers brothers together. Like I don't understand why we literally had them in the same movie.
And then you killed one.
And then you killed one. And then they were in the same movie, and they didn't do shit together. Like they literally didn't do shit. So I don't know what the approach was.
It's almost it was almost to set up like some more turmoil for the character of Scott. But it doesn't, honestly, the younger version of Scott that we see later on in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, ultimately for me, wasn't really given the greatest material to work with. And that's a great actor, Ty Sheridan, the guy from Ready Player One. Great actor. I think he's great as Scott. I just think that they didn't give him a whole lot to do. So to see his brother character in this movie, that's my biggest thing. I'm okay with adaptations, but sometimes it feels like some of these writers, specifically the writers, because I feel like the direction of this film is fine. It's the writing for me sometimes. I just feel like adapt the story, sure. But when you look at what the history of these characters, again, you have Azazel and Mystique in the same movie, and you don't even hint at the fact that they have a romance and that their child is Nightcrawler. Like Nightcrawler is my favorite X-Men, and I still cannot believe to this point that after all the video games, cartoons, and comics that we have that explore that mother-son relationship, or the relationship between Mystique and Azazel, how are you going to have a movie that's a prequel to all of this that has Mystique and Azazel in it, but Mystique and Beast are flirting?
Which that's something we didn't touch on. We'll touch on that literally for 2 seconds. Well, obviously not 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. I just don't understand. Like you have, as you said, you had the perfect thing set up, Azazel and Mystique in the movie. So why in the world are you having Mystique flirt with Beast? And it being an awkward flirting too.
Right, and ultimately Beast ends up taking a big diarrhea dump right all over Mystique because he literally tells her later on, when they're trying to find a way to cure their what they look like, she turns into like her more human self, and he goes, "See, now you're beautiful." Pretty much is like what he's talking. He's and she's just like, and she's still, and then they drop that romance after he hits her with that zinger, right?
And they just drop it like
they drop it like, completely dropped, never brought up ever again. And again, you have Azazel. Again, I'm gonna say it to anybody who's hopped in here right now that it like is, it's like watching a Spider-Man movie. A brand new Spider-Man movie that would have like some other female character that's from a different, let's say Mystique was in the Spider-Man No Way Home, and Spider-Man was just flirting with Mystique the whole time, instead of with MJ, and never got with MJ, or Black Widow was in the movie, or something, or like Yelena, freaking Florence Pugh's character shows up, and MJ just gets sidelined, or they don't even explore a romance. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Adapt, sure, but like, Nightcrawler is Mystique's son. Like, that is the story. You don't have to do it just like the comics.
But at least incorporate it. And that's
but if you're going to have Azazel and Mystique in the same film, Azazel is literally just a red version of Nightcrawler. That's his daddy. Mystique is his mama. The fact that even in X-Men 2, we talked about this in the other video that we filmed, there's that great scene with the whole thing where she's just like...
Evens that voice.
Yeah, right. She's like, he's like, oh, is it true that, you can disguise yourself however you want? And and he's like, even your voice, that whole thing, and they never even touch on the fact that that's your mama, boy.
Like D Movie Man just made a comment that was about like the whole them hinting at like Mystique and Eric hooking up too, like subliminally, which I don't understand that either.
Right.
It's so weird.
They try to set that whole thing up, which happens super fast. Like they don't really have very many scenes together, and then she just like throws herself on the bed to this guy. Like, what form do you want? You know what I mean? Like, and he was like, and then he goes, maybe in a few years, kind of hinting at the fact that maybe she's too young for him. But then he gets in bed and he kisses her.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are we doing here, Eric? You just said in a few years, and now you're macking on the girl. So what's happening? Like, I don't know, bro.
I don't know what to say. So listen, for anybody who's watching this at this point, we're gonna wrap it up now, and the reason for that is because Rob has to get to a flight now. I'm gonna take him to the airport, and we filmed the video. Like I said, we filmed the video already for this, and the audio was corrupted, and it sucks. But so we decided to just do this off the cuff. It's already gone longer than we intended to, but I think we got our thoughts out on this one. X-Men First Class is an entertaining movie. I think if you're an X-Men fan, there's a lot of greatness to be enjoyed here, especially around Xavier and Magneto. I think without a doubt they are the greatest part of this movie, and anything that has to do with the two of them, for the most part, is really great. And they play a great younger version of Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Like, I think they do a really great job of capturing those characters. But I think it goes without saying that there's too many characters, way too many characters in this movie that were not balanced. You know what I mean? They weren't balanced. There's so many characters that just don't have much of a purpose in the story.
Not much of a purpose, and just not real good direction. No good writing. As you said earlier, like the directing of the movie is good. It's just the writing of these
characters are kind of useless. Like they don't serve a purpose. Like,
and it's like they didn't really read anything about them. Some of them at least, or they did, and they were like, oh, okay, let me just like take this one thing that isn't really important about them and then make that the focal point. Like, I don't know.
Right. That's a really good way of putting it. There's so many characters, and it just feels like they took the basic premise of who these characters are and threw them in the movie. And then you have characters like Azazel or Riptide or Angel or, maybe even Banshee or, Darwin and these characters that are just there to kind of just do a superpower thing for a little bit. Maybe we see them train. I like seeing the training of them all becoming X-Men, but it ultimately doesn't go anywhere like deeper than that.
I don't have a character, bro, that it's so dope that creates twisters, and the only thing he does is button and unbutton his jacket when he enters and leaves the room. That's
so true. And ultimately, these characters, the movie ends with Magneto rescuing Emma Frost from prison, and when she looks at the doorway, he's like, you want to come with me? I'm Magneto. He's got Mystique there. He's got Riptide. He's got Azazel, and I think he got somebody else there. He's got
Angel.
He's got the whole bunch. None of those characters except for Magneto and Mystique come back in the next movie.
Oh man.
And listen, I think Matthew Vaughn is a great director. They obviously didn't know what they were trying to do, and I think that's the biggest. Yeah, then everyone dies in Days of Future Past. It's so true. That's just the way the next movie. Well, it's kind of like when you watch like any of the X-Men movies, even Days of Future Past. Listen, Days of Future Past is a fantastic movie, but then the movie ends with this very hopeful. And this is where we have to wrap it up because I gotta take Rob to the airport. But they end the movie Days of Future Past with him having rewritten everything, right? Kind of rewriting the original 3 movies. This super fucking, think about this, super fucking happy ending where we get to see like Jean Grey is alive and Kelsey Grammer's there at the end as Beast and everything. Like everybody is together. Rogue and Bobby are walking around with each other. It's all fucking dandy. And then in the next fucking, what was it? And then we get Logan. And the whole premise of Logan is that all of the X-Men got decimated. And it's just him and Xavier now. And living a sad, discouraged, just, as much as I love Logan and I love Days of Future Past, I just think as a series, imagine if we watched like, imagine if the MCU, you know, had like Avengers Endgame and they all said, Avengers! Assemble. And they saved the day. And then in the next movie, it was like a Captain America movie and he like, the Avengers all died. Like, what? What are we talking about? Why are they dead? Like, it's like, come on. Like, I think Days of Future Past is where it should have ended. I think Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, and we're going to get to those. I already did Dark Phoenix, so I'm not covering that again. But go back and check out that review. But I'm gonna do Apocalypse. I'm doing that one with Jacob Martin, and I'm doing Days of Future Past with Blacktastic Media. And then I have Sydney Volpe on for, what's it called? The Wolverine. And then I'm going to have Darnell from Rejected Heroes Media for Deadpool, and then Cinematic Tendency is joining me for Deadpool 2, and then we will be wrapping up this series. I think that this movie has so much good, but I think ultimately it just it leaves you with a sense of discouragement.
They took a dump.
So I don't have anything in the description box right now because we decided to do this off the cuff, off the fly. So if you're watching this, you're like, oh, I missed it. Oh man, I missed the live stream, or I didn't even know you were gonna live stream. I didn't know I was gonna live stream until 10 minutes later. D Movie Man, because he's in the comments down there. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to D Movie Man and I are actually gonna do the Jaws series together, all 4 movies. So I'm looking forward to doing that over the course of time. Big thanks to you guys for watching. The Big Rob Theory here on YouTube. Again, the description box doesn't have anything right now because we just did this off the cuff, but I am going to go in after the fact. So if you're watching this later on, his link will be in the description box. Go give him some love. Let him know I sent you. Any final words, my friend?
No, man. Just, you know, I don't know if any of those people watch this. Probably not. But, man, I really hate that so many characters were kind of wasted in this thing. That's about it. You know, decent movie, just terrible writing at times, but thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it.
For sure, guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to end this stream now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.